Hey, Benedek, founder of Voovo. Thanks very much for joining. If you could start by introducing yourself, please.
For having me. I'm Benedek. I'm the founder of VUVU. VUVU helps higher education institutions to implement daily revision into their curriculum, helping students with learning outcomes and also helping with retention, graduation, and course completion rates.
Nice. And can you tell me a little bit more about Voovo and tell me a little bit about your background as well?
Yeah, we started off with my background. So I was not coming from the technology side at all. I was a medical student myself, struggling to learn in school. And then basically, this is how VUVU came. We built a tool for ourselves first as students, and then as we progressed and got our first 100 and 1,000 users, this is when we decided to quit university, join an accelerator program, raise venture capital, and then focus on fully building this venture with the vision of implementing the best learning methods, active recall and spaced repetition into everyday education, basically.
And dropping out of uni was quite a big decision. What made you do that? What made you drop out rather than wait to build it?
So yeah, so I was medical school is like 6 years. I was a third year, so I still had a long way to go. And honestly, I loved school. Like I really was one of the students who was like really into medical school and really attending every lecture. Like I really loved it. So it wasn't like I wanted to leave. But getting more into venture, getting more into startup ecosystem is just like it's a whole nother level of entertainment or like or joy might not be the right word, but like action and execution and speed. So it's like it's uncomparable. And I knew that this was what I was gonna do, what I want to do for the rest of my life. I'm not saying I'm not going back anytime in medical school because I think the knowledge that I get there is super relevant for ventures to build as well. I'm just saying that this is the kind of role, or this is the kind of lifestyle I want to live, like building companies, working long hours, figuring out things, talking to customers, getting obsessed with problems. And yeah, this is just a lifestyle and a job that's like sucks you in and and you don't want to go to school anymore.
Yeah, I totally get that. It's a lot more thrilling building a company, selling,
Yeah,
raising
thrilling
funds, and everything.
is a very good word. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like a real life movie, but with the bad parts as well that you don't see in the movies. Yeah. And how did you go about starting the product? You said you were in university when you started it. How did you start it?
Yeah, so I couldn't code back then. Still cannot a lot. I can like review code and tell developers that there is bug, but but I cannot like write it. So what I would say is, first we just saw the problem. Intuitively, we were like asking others, like, do you have the same problem? Most of them said yes. So we thought, okay, maybe this is something to build. I got together with a friend of mine. He was back then like starting to become a developer. He could do some basic projects, maybe not so basic as well. So we built the first prototype, which was would have been nice if I could show. Like it's one of the worst products you could ever imagine. Like literally, like looking at it, and it was worse than like what can I bring as an example? It was worse, like the UI and everything was worse than a bank. Like like those traditional banks, which it takes like 10 times to get through a button. Like it was worse than that even. So it had one user, it was me, and quickly I got convinced that this is something to not to put out in the app store, but we need to get to, like, it wasn't minimum viable. So I decided to try to raise a bit of money, like really, I think 10 or 15K, just like get us something. I did do that pretty soon. And yeah, we built like the first real MVP, which had like 5-6 features, five, 6, I would say, good features. And we put it out there. This was pre ChatGPT time, so it was like a side project, so we weren't like doing it full time. We're just doing it, let's say, like, a couple of hours a week, 15 hours a week, and then we put it out there. The MVP got like pretty quickly to 1,000 users, 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, and that it was like a good. We saw that there was like a need for it. So yeah, then ChatGPT came out. We introduced it into our app, raised a bit more capital, like, again, not so much, 50K. Made the biggest mistake of VUVU so far, to start building a web platform with 50K, and continue building a mobile with 50K. So it's like, it was one of the worst decisions to do that. Should have focused only on one thing. But yeah,
Why was that a bad decision?
because a lot of our users were asking for a web. Like, everyone was asking. 50K is not enough to build something with paying developers and stuff. Like, it's just not enough. If your co-founders are doing it full time with no money, it is. But if you're, our CTO was a guy who had 3 kids. He needed some ammunition to live. So it wasn't sustainable, and doing 2 platforms in the same time, web and mobile, was just really a bad decision. So yeah, this is how we got to like 10K users. That was the time, and then ChatGPT destroyed, I think, this market. 100 similar apps come out. It's like every other app in education is now flashcard or note creation, and quiz creation. So we then had to reiterate and find another business model.
And how did you go about reiterating and finding another business model?
It was the time when we were in the accelerator that I told you, like, that made us quit university, and we were thinking a lot about like which exact route should we go into. There was corporate learning on the table, which I never wanted to do, but it was on the table. There was like selling to universities. There was like selling to K-12. There was changing our product, was staying B2B, B2C. There was focusing and building the current B2C product with our users, with our customers now, and making it as great as it can be, and like, basically getting a small amount of traction, or a little more amount of traction there. There's so many things on the table, but then eventually we were like asking the question of who do we help? Who do we help the most? And these students who we help the most are usually like lower achieving students who really need the help. And we were thinking about how do we reach those students, and building an app that lets you to create your own material is not the best way to, because students don't even get there. Like, these students don't even think about creating their own flashcards. So how come do we we limit ourselves to students who are already motivated, already want to do better? So we work together. We decided to work together with universities, decided to work together with higher education and secondary education institutions. And we decided to take their content, transform it to like this VUVU style content, and distribute it among students. This was one of the hypotheses that we had. And then we started selling to these the higher ed institutions without having any code written. We just had like a deck, and they wanted it. Like, when I say they, I say one wanted it, but they wanted it like pretty soon. So we could start a pilot in like 3 months, since the idea came. The idea came in like, I would say, June, or maybe not June. Like, let's say idea came in like April. First saying that they are willing to do the pilot came in May, and then we started building the product in July. So July, August, September were super tough, but we managed to put it out there, and we managed to to get a first pilot, and it went very, very well. Success KPIs were through the roof, and it was a learning that really helped us to focus and to double down on this.
And you've raised 500k in funding, I believe, and you'd raised a little bit more before that. How did you go about fundraising?
Yeah. So fundraising is a tricky thing. I think I'm a good fundraiser in general. Like when I'm on there is like back end and front end to fundraising. Or maybe this is not how I call it, but like back end is the process. Like how do you build up fundraising? There's a front end that can you actually convert those meetings into cash? And both, you have to be good in both. But the back end of fundraising, we were very strict on. Now looking back, we had a terrible process. But it's usually how it is. Like every fundraising cycle, you learn a lot. We are getting into our next fundraising round right now, and or like pretty soon, and our process is like uncomparable. It's so much more sophisticated, it's so much better than the previous one. But we still had a process, which was eventually was good. Or you have to have some kind of back end to fundraising, which prospecting, reaching out, tracking, following up, and then getting to meetings. And then our docs were super good. Like this is something really easy to do. Like whatever traction you have, whatever metrics you have, make them like present them in a very nice way. Like not lying, tell the truth, just say what you have learned and what you will do after, and then have it inside like an amazing docs, like both design, both like everything, it should look super professional. And everything of this I call backend of fundraising. And those we were quite good at. Looking back, the process could have been much better, but generally it was like compared to your like pre-seed, very, very pre-seed, non-technical like founders who came from medical school, it was like quite an okay backend. And then front-end wise, you have to sell the story, especially pre-seed. Like we didn't have the most amazing like hockey stick metrics, but we could sell the story. Like I was a medical student who dropped out. I could tell like I'm obsessed with this thing. Like it made I'm losing my future because of this. Like we could sell this pretty well to investors, and then getting into Techstars also really, really helped. Like Techstars gives you such credibility that you can build upon, and if you can successfully build upon, you can raise good capital. And I think in that batch, 12 companies, we're amongst 3 out of us raised through Techstars, or maybe 2 out of us. Anyway, like it was like a minority of us raised through Techstars. Why? Because we were the ones who warmed up there. We were the ones who were raising before Techstars. So I would really advise everyone who gets into a accelerator that you warm up your investors before the accelerator, and then once you hit it, everyone's going to be like, oh my god, I need to invest now. And this we have done really well. Like we had like 10 investors who could say like, hey, we just got into Techstars, you should invest in us. And they said, yeah, I will. Yeah. So this was the process of first fundraising. Now we have a much rigorous, pragmatic, I would say sophisticated as well, process to getting into the seed round.
How is your fundraising process improved?
Like so many ways. How do I put this? Like it's just uncomparable. Like the fundraising process we did before was based on an article that we read. Now we read 100 articles, listened to 50 webinars, and like put together something that we believe is going to work for us. And it's real. I think right now it's like quite a good process and very data driven, but focusing on our story, which is always, even in seed, you have to focus on the story that you build. So yeah, how it is improved. It is improved by getting more information and just becoming smarter in terms of tech, in terms of startup world. Like understanding better what investors need, understanding which investors should we talk to, understanding which investors should we not talk to, and understanding what, how you can. I think the most important thing about fundraising is like you have to put, and this is, I think, a lot of founders are not getting it. Like when you talk to an investor, if you think about it, you should be on the same side of the table, looking at the same data sheet together. Instead, what usually happens is like you're against each other on the table, and you are looking at data sheet on the side, and they are asking you about the data, and you're responding to them. But no, usually what you should achieve with your investors, that you're on the same side of the table, and you together try to figure out what the best about that, and then when you can, when you include them in your decision making before they invest, and they agree with your decision making up until you start fundraising, that's when you got them locked in. That's when you go, they and it's also good, like they trust you because you included them in your decision making process. And this is why pitch decks should also have like this: what have we learned, what have we done, or what have we experimented with, and how do we see the future.
And you mentioned that you went through Techstars. Could you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so Techstars is, I think, really about like what kind of founder are you. If you're a first-time founder who have little knowledge in the space, Techstars changes your mindset about startups. I think it's the best way to go through. YC is more like it became very niche to which founders it's gonna help. Like it's gonna help very technical like geniuses who are building AI nowadays. Techstars is a little different. Techstars is super selective as well. Like I think it maybe like 1% chance to get in or something like this. Like it's quite selective, but you have a much greater chance to get in because if you're not like this technical guru genius, because it's not just looking for that. It's looking for founders who are really good in sales, and who are, or like who are really creative, who are coming from the entertainment industry. It's looking for a whole wide range of founders, and I think it's really amazing. And what happened is, I was coming from medical school. I didn't know shit about this. I read all the books I could, and I watched all the videos I could, but still, you don't have any hands-on experience. So I got in, or we got in, and then it changed my life. I could say, like, I'm not saying it cliche wise, like it completely changed the way how I think. And it's like, I will give you an example. This is an example I usually tell to people. Like, I was coming from medical world. If you do 50 studies, then you publish something, right? In the startup world, you publish something, and if people react to it well, you do the studies to show that it works. And it's completely a different kind of mindset. And I really needed this push. And then Techstars has like two sides. I think one of them is like the franchise that it brings, like, or the brand it brings. That brings amazing workshops. It brings amazing knowledge. It brings amazing perks. It brings amazing network and a lot of things. Amazing credibility. And then on the other side, you have your batch or your cohort mates, other companies in the cohort, and you have the managing director in that program, who is different for each Techstars program. And we were very lucky with Martin, our managing director. He's still helping us a lot. It's really amazing, and I think he's one of the best. The data shows well. He's one of the best MDs in Techstars. I think he raised one of the most amount of money compared to other MDs. So yeah, it was really an amazing experience.
That's interesting, and I totally get what you say as well, the difference in mindset shift between like academia and startups, because in startups you have to get used to, you know, shipping things that aren't great and just getting them out fast, whereas if you're writing a paper or a report in academia and that sort of industry, it's all about working on it, refining it, and then getting out only when it's perfect, isn't it? So it's a completely different mindset.
Yeah.
And so going back more to VUVU, how does that change learning compared to other apps like Anki and other flashcard apps? Like what makes you guys different?
Yeah, so our main idea first was make it easier to create your own material compared to Anki or other flashcard apps. And since then, it changed a little bit. Now we see that Anki is great, VUVU is great, Quizlet is great, everything is great. It's just not used by the most amount. Like it's just not used by majority of students. Like you go in a class and you see one or two people using Anki, the gurus or geniuses or the ones that are really into stuff, and then 90% of other students are not using it. How do we make something that is used by 90% of students? Pretty tough job. 90 even, and also like let me do like a little bracket here. I don't know how familiar are you or the audience is with the space repetition active recall research. I don't think very. So I'm just gonna give you a bit of background. So just to give you context, what is flashcards, what is Anki, what is VUVU? So there is this research out there and it has been like studied by various universities, and it has been always proven to be right, is that space repetition active recall are the single best learning methods for long-term retention. How did they prove it, or what are these methods? First, active recall is when you learn something and then you don't learn it again, you don't read that again, or you don't watch it again, but you try to actively recall it from your mind. Meaning that you learned my name today, probably when I introduced myself, and if I ask you to try to remember what my name was right now, then you don't read again the name of the podcast, but you try to actively remember what my name was. That would be active recall, super effective. But then we tend to forget these information from time to time. So therefore, space repetition is, I would ask what my name was tomorrow, and if you know it tomorrow, I would ask it in 5 days, and I would ask it in 14 days or 30 days. In increasing intervals, I would ask the same information from you. That's the idea. Anki does this with students. You upload your content and it's going to make sure you revise information in this manner. Now, the studies and research also suggest, and I think this is the most important part of this research, is that students, I will quote an exact research here. Students were split into 4 groups. One of them read the material once, second read the material 4 times, third read the material, then created a mind map, fourth read the material and did active recall on it, like basically did flashcards. Now, they tested these students on various like comprehension and just factual knowledge, reasoning with that knowledge, and all kinds of ways. Active recall outperformed every other by margins, like a lot. Now, when they asked students, how do you think you know the information? Active recall became last. Students do not interpret the knowledge that they gain with active recall. Students feel like they gain more information with many rereadings or mind maps or other form of learnings than they think they do with active recall. And it's just, I think this is the way, like this discrepancy between actual results and our subjective view on our knowledge. This discrepancy between these two, this makes us not use these methods, right? And this leads to only 5% of students are using these methods on a daily basis. And whatever flashcard app you do, if you don't break this, you might make a good product and you might monetize the student base, but you're not making real difference in terms of actual learning outcomes for lower achieving students. So we took the position of making it going from university to university and implementing this method into the whole university. That was the idea. And with the first university that we did, within 2 weeks, 92% of all students were using us every day. And that's the difference. I'm not able to do it in the whole world yet. With the technology that we are building, I really believe that we are going to be able. But making a difference in a small set of data and then scaling that is what I think is the best route for us. And when you ask what's the difference, it's usage. Anki is used by the top 5%. Maybe it might be that everywhere in the world, but our tool is used by 90% of students within one sample. Hope it made sense. And I'm sorry for having this huge bracket, but I think it's really worth understanding the research behind these methods.
Yeah, no, I think it's really important to state that, because I think even going from my experience, like when I was at school, I did really bad on everything. I wasn't very good at learning. And then when I was like 21, I started to learn languages, and I used Anki every day. And I learned languages so much easier. Then I started reading into the research behind spaced repetition. I was like, wow, how did I not know about like active recall and spaced repetition? And since that's always been my primary way. So yeah, I think it's very important to stress that.
This is what we try to achieve, like that you as a student in secondary school, your curriculum in the school is based around spaced repetition. That's where we are going.
Yeah, it should be taught in schools, because like you say, Anki's only used by the top 5%. How can we get more people using Anki? How can you get more schools knowing about spaced repetition? Because it's crazy that it's not considering it's the most effective, right?
Yeah, and it's not just like, even if it's taught in school, it's like, if it's so easy to it's I will give you an example. Like, for example, I believe what is taught in school that is not used by, I would say, let's say note taking is probably taught in school. I'm not sure if a lot of students are doing really well note taking. It's because they are not, the system does not require to do so. So what we did with VUVU is that we made a curriculum designed with the school around spaced repetition. And therefore students, like 90% plus students did use spaced repetition on a daily basis, and also reported like 90% of them, or 90 something percent of them, reported better grades after. Reported that it has had a positive impact on their grades. So yeah, I think it's if we can make it happen in many universities, then it can make a huge impact, a huge difference.
Yeah, I feel like you've got the product there, you've got the data and everything. It's almost certain to make a difference. It's just about how do you go about convincing universities to use it, or convincing people to get it as part of their curriculum. It seems like that's the really big task for you, right?
Exactly, and that involves product, that involves sales, that involves credibility, that involves go to market, that involves a lot of data points that we have not figured out yet, or assumptions that we have not validated yet. And it's not just because some of them we could have validated yet, but we didn't think at the time. But some of them we are not able to validate yet because the market will tell. And I really agree with what you said, that once it's implemented, it works very well. This we know. How do we make sure that with our product, with our sales, with our everything, with our company, we make sure that the implementation is possible in a scalable way?
For sure. And obviously that's one big challenge, but what would you say the biggest challenge for you for VUVU has been overall?
I would say there are two. One of them is technology. We're struggling on the tech side of making changes. And the second thing is, and technology, I mean that we have been focusing mainly on delivering and not, delivering and not on tech architecture. Like we just didn't care. We just go, let's get it done. And then we have so much left which is still manual, which is not automated, which we are not able to scale. So we have to work a lot in that area to be able to accelerate our growth. And the second one is just getting credibility in the US market. Getting, everyone says that I talk to is that the first US higher education customer is the hardest to get. And I feel that we have been through some meetings, and we have some good data points that we are able to, we are very close with one huge university to close, but it's still it's still a process that it's super challenging. Like our cold emails are not working, the conferences are tend to work, but still a long time to get some follow-ups after. So altogether it's like, I would say, sales in international markets and technology to catch up with our vision.
I totally get you on the sales part, getting your first customer. I think that's the same in every industry. Like getting your first customer's the hardest. And then getting, like, when you come out of university, getting the first job's the hardest. The first everything's just the hardest, I think.
Yeah. And the same goes, like getting the first, like it was getting the first in Hungary was quite hard, but getting the next ones are pretty simple now. Like I just call them and you work with the most prestigious university. Yeah, let's work together. So that part I think is okay to do, but in the US it became a little tougher than we thought.
Exactly. And yeah, like you said, in Hungary, once you've got one prestigious uni, it works. It'll be the same like that for the US. You just need that social proof. And then once you've got one uni, it'll snowball. And what's your plan for the future? Like, what's your 1 year plan, your 3 year plan, if you do plan like that?
1 year plan, we want to get to minimum of 10K paying licensed students. Ideally 20K. But 10K is the minimum. That would be like a 10x on the current one. This is like a license, not B2C. B2C, we have a couple 100,000, but they are like 20K users in B2C already. But we want to get to 20K licensed B2B students. Yeah, and we also want to get our first international pilot, of course, pretty soon. And 3 year, getting to higher ed sales is like quite slow, but still we're ambitious, and we getting to 300, 500K students on the platform would be an amazing 3 year goal.
Nice. And just moving on to like learning yourself, how do you like to learn? Do you use the active recall method? Do you use flashcards? Do you read books? Like what's your preference for learning?
Yeah, so I failed my first anatomy test and in college, no, anatomy exam, not just like the whole exam of the course. I failed that. So after that, we started building VUVU, and I studied like this. Like, once we have built VUVU, I studied almost every day with it. And the difference was that I studied every day a little bit. Others would not really. And when we got to the hardest exam in medical school, which is like, or let's say one of the hardest, it's called anatomy finals. And it was after the first year of school. Anatomy finals super tough, and just by studying day by day until that point, I literally studied like a day for that, or like 2 days. Others studied like 3 weeks. I studied like 2 days for that, and I got 97 or 98% on the finals. And it was just because I'm like, as I said, I would have started. I failed my first anatomy test because I'm not some genius. I just used the best methods and I used them regularly, and it made me one of the best students in the school. And this is what I believe, that this has to be more more popular in the students' learning habits.
And did you always want to start a business? Like, have you always seen yourself as going down the entrepreneurship route, or did you just fall into it when you found a great idea?
I think I always done a bit of business. Like, I have a coffee shop. I with my family, I co-own a baby manufacturing, not baby manufacturing, but baby clothing manufacturing company. That would be next level baby manufacturing.
New market right there.
A pretty big value market there. But yeah, so I have been doing entrepreneurship stuff, but I never like, there is like basic entrepreneurship, when there is like startups. Startup is a whole nother world. So that I didn't get in before the first idea. I always wanted to become a doctor. That's why I was going to medical school, and then I just decided to pursue this dream, and now I know that this is what I want to do.
Nice. Yeah, I think that's a route a lot of entrepreneurs go down, is like doing the small things and then starting a startup.
Yeah.
Do you listen to podcasts, read books? Do you use any other edtech apps yourself?
I use Blinkist. When I get like book recommendations, I don't always read them all, so I just like to listen to the 20-minute summary. So that's one thing I use. I do listen to a lot of podcasts. Yeah, whenever I have time. Like, my favorite podcast right now is like Crucible Moments. I don't know if you know that. It's from Sequoia Capital, and they focus on one of the biggest companies' crucible moments. So, for example, when a huge new competition came in for Airbnb, or when UiPath doubled their ARR, but the CEO wanted to, I think, 4 exit instead of like, no, 6 exit instead of like 2 exit or something like this, and then so like, it's all the the crucible, the hardest moments in the life of a startup. And yeah, I think it's an amazing podcast. And then others I listen to as well. I like to listen to a bunch of education focused podcasts, which are like not really startup-y, but so I understand the market better. I do listen to some of those. Yeah, I would say these are my go-tos: book summaries and startup and education podcasts.
Nice. Yeah, I'll have to give that Crucible Moments a listen. I think I've heard that now you've mentioned it. But yeah. And in terms of location, you're building from Budapest rather than a lot of people in Silicon Valley, New York, all these sort of big cities. How do you find that? I can imagine it's got its pros and its cons.
I don't think it got its pros.
Price is cheaper than London, right? Or Silicon Valley?
I mean, you can still like have your workforce here. Maybe you have cheap connection. Yeah, the connection to a cheap market. That's good. But honestly, like, once we have raised the seed round, it's like US. We go to New York and build our startup from there. It's like we have been there for a couple of weeks, and it's just another level of ecosystem of entrepreneurs, of momentum. So yeah, as much as I love Budapest and love this city and I love the people here, if you want to build a big startup, you can do it from here. I'm not saying you cannot. It's just like, you put in X amount of effort and you get 10x out there, and you get 5x out of here. Yeah.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And is it difficult to move to New York, or is it easy to get a visa? Or
I don't want to get too technical, but visa-wise, we are good. Like if you build a startup
Cool.
that got, so there are a couple of like three things you have to cover. One of them is you be selected for like a major accelerator program or any kind of program. Second is like get some media coverage, like people writing articles about you and the company. And the third one is get like a bit of like not huge but a good traction. And if you have these three, they give you a visa pretty easily. The only problem is the price. Like I make 1/3 of the cheapest apartment in New York City, or like the cheapest apartment which you are able to live in. Uh, and that's 1/3 that I make in Hungary as a startup founder. So I just can't afford it. Like there is nothing, and before we raise the seed, I don't even want to afford it from our pre-seed bank. So let's get the seed in the bank. Let's move to the US and build a company from there when we like to scale.
Nice. That sounds like the perfect plan. But yeah, Benedek, thanks ever so much for coming on. It's great to have you. Love what you're building at VUVU. It's really, really good and changing learning for good and enlightening students to methods that actually work and, change it that way. So I think it's great and great
Thank
to
you so
speak
much
to
for
you.
having me. Thanks so much for having me, Alex.